What's going on? In this video, I'm going to be testing out a bunch of different APS-C lenses on my Sony a7s III in 4K mode, so this isn't going to be using the crop mode. I want to test these out, see what sort of coverage I can get on a full frame sensor with these lenses. So hopefully if you're in the market for an a7s III and have these lenses, or even the other way around, you can kind of see how these crop sensor lenses perform on the a7s III. Now all these are pretty popular lenses. I have of course the Sigma 16mm f1.4. This right here is the 16-50 kit lens that most Sony APS-C cameras have, like the a6000 series. This is the 55-210mm Sony lens, and of course basically the most popular lens of all time, the Sigma 18-35 crop sensor lens. So I have used all these on my a7s III before, so I do have a little bit of experience with it, but I'm going to be just tossing them on there and just kind of showing what it looks like in the full frame 4K mode on the a7s III, and just kind of talk about each one while it's on the camera. So first things first, let's choose one of these and I'll swap it on. Let's do the 16mm f1.4. So here's the Sigma 16mm f1.4. Active steady shot is off, so this is full frame 4K, not cropped in at all. And you can see there's not a whole lot of vignetting. It's definitely noticeable, but it's nothing crazy. You know, it's not like totally unsavable, like a circle, you know, this big in the center or anything like that. So it really doesn't look too bad. You know, once you crop in like 1.2 times, you know, like 120% on this, it pretty much gets rid of that. And then you have yourself like an 18 or 19mm full frame lens at f1.4, which is pretty crazy. Now this is probably the lens I've used the most with my a7s III, because I love getting those super wide angle shots, and I just pretty much crop in on this just a little bit, and everything else about it is amazing. The autofocus works perfect. It's tracking my eye right now, which is awesome, even on this wide of an angle. Super good in low light, really good shallow depth of field. This is just an awesome lens to use on this. Of course, you can kind of see the edges. Where is that? Right around there. They're really not super sharp, especially like, you kind of see that. It's not that sharp, of course it's out of focus anyways, but overall, I mean, it's a pretty awesome lens. I love using this in full frame mode. I just have to crop in a little bit in post, or like put active stabilization on, which crops in a little bit as well. But for me, that's not a big deal, and I just love the look of this, an ultra wide angle lens like this, at f1.4. It's really something that's hard to find in a full frame equivalent, you know, like 18 or 19mm f1.4. So it's definitely an awesome lens to use if you already have it, or even maybe consider picking it up. Just make sure you know that there's definitely some vignetting. But either way, I'm gonna swap to the 16-50 APS-C kit lens. All right, so this one, this one definitely has some more vignetting. I mean, there's literally just a circle in the middle. I don't even, oh, you can see my magic arm that's holding my monitor up, which is kind of crazy because you couldn't on this, which makes this lens seem wider even though they're both 16s, which there must be a lot of image correction that maybe crops in more on this on APS-C cameras. I really don't know. It's kind of weird because I don't think you could see this with the Sigma 16mm. Either way, this is a lot wider. So there's a bunch of vignetting. It's just literally a circle in the middle of the screen. And this is at 16mm. However, this also has power zoom, so I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in on the shot here. Okay, so it looks like it's kind of gone now. So that's zoomed in all the way right there at 50mm, and I think the vignetting is all completely gone, but if I zoom out, it starts picking up there. You can kind of see it on the side of my hand there. Then you get like this square type right here. For a lot of it, it almost looks like a, you know, like vintage film, but either way, you keep zooming out. That kind of goes away. Kinda. It's like right there, it's not super bad. That's not terrible at all. I'm not sure what that is though. It's probably about halfway. It's probably like 35mm or so, maybe 24 or something. It kind of looks like my original shot. So probably around 24mm. And then of course, that's crazy. If you like that, if you like this style, it might be kind of cool, but that's a lot of vignetting on this one. So let's switch over to, let's do the 55-210mm. All right, here we go. This is a 55-210mm, and this is at 55mm. So this is all the way zoomed out. Of course, it's, you know, a really tight angle here at 55mm, and there's quite a bit of vignetting still. This is almost like the look of, you know, when the other one was at like 35mm. It's almost like square. It's like straight lines there. Where am I? There we go. There's like straight lines there, and then it kind of rounds out. And this is at the widest angle. Now when I zoom in, it's gonna be really zoomed in. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see me, but I'm still gonna zoom in and just show you what it looks like all the way to 210mm. Also, I switched over to auto ISO because this one has a pretty small aperture. So it's at auto ISO. This might be kind of noisy, especially once I zoom in, but let's see how this looks. Wow. So it actually gets worse the more you zoom in, which is usually not how it goes, but this really looks like an old like film camera right here. So that's like, you know, obviously you can see what that looks like. Not super good. Autofocus on this lens is good though. Pretty much everything else, I mean, it has stabilization. It's a pretty decent lens. However, in full frame like this, it's not really the best. All right, all the way back out to 55mm. Like I said, full frame in video mode like this, that's not the best, but if you use 1080p, this is still a decent lens for, you know, if you have a really tight budget. I made a whole review of this lens if you want to check it out. I'll link that down in the description, but either way, it's definitely not the best in full frame 4K video mode, as you can obviously see. So let's switch over to the Sigma 18-35. All right, here we go. This is the Sigma 18-35, all the way zoomed out at 18mm. And there's a decent amount of vignetting. It's definitely more than the Sigma 16mm, and this is at 18mm, but it's not terrible. You know, you'd have to crop in quite a bit still to get rid of this completely. But let's start zooming in. You can see it gets rid of the vignetting pretty quick. So this is 20mm, and there's still a decent amount. This is 24mm, and there's barely any up there, just a small amount. You can pretty easily get rid of that or crop in just a little more. Maybe that's not even noticeable for, you know, if you're shooting a darker scene or something like that. But this is at 24mm. By 28mm, it's pretty much gone. You can kind of see like just a vague little bit of vignetting in the corners there, but it's pretty much gone. Like I would call this completely gone at 28mm. Then of course, at 35mm, 100% gone. And this lens is super sharp. It's an amazing lens. Like there's a reason why this is one of the best selling lenses ever. It's an awesome, super sharp lens, super fast at f1.8, has good autofocus. All these lenses actually have good autofocus. I might not have said that specifically, but they all have good autofocus. You know, they can all use eye tracking with the a7s III or whatever Sony camera you have basically to keep up with it. And so this one, along with the Sigma 16mm, are definitely some of my favorites to use with this. With this one, you kind of have to be between 24 and 35mm for it to, you know, cover the full sensor, but 24 to 35 is still a pretty awesome focal range. You know, you can pretty much skip out having to buy a 24 and a 35mm lens, or even 24, 28, and 35, which a lot of primes are, because this is f1.8 all the way through, which is awesome. So I'd say this, along with the 16mm, two that I'd recommend the most out of all of these. You know, the other two have pretty extreme vignetting, and they're also obviously more budget-friendly lenses. These are both offered as kit lenses, I believe, and they're pretty budget friendly if you do buy them, so you know they're good if you're into that. However, the ones I definitely recommend the most with the a7s III are of course the two Sigmas. That pretty much wraps this up. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.